All right, everybody, welcome back to another interview. Today we are joined by Isaac Christopherson. Isaac, would you like to introduce yourself and let everybody know what your pronouns are?
I'm Isaac. My pronouns are he, him. I was the director for the first three chapters of Poppy Playtime. I left Mob back in March of last year, and now I'm making my own games with my new studio called Curious Fox Sox, which is myself and Gunnar and Preston, who are friends of mine from high school, and we're working on a game called Feed the Pit.
I'm so excited to talk about that later on. But just to kick us off, I want to know, is working in game development something you've always wanted to do? Or at some point, was there another career on your mind?
Yeah, this is probably rare, and I think I just got lucky. But I have this poster I made back in kindergarten, or our whole class made them, and it was like putting what you want to be when you grow up, and all this other information, like when you were born, where you were born, all that stuff. And I looked back at it not too long ago, and I found that it said, "I want to make video games when I grow up." So that is really crazy to look at now and see that I actually managed to do that. But in between, that poster and Poppy Playtime, there was a bit of moving around all the way from kindergarten up to like seventh grade. I would write these books in class even when I wasn't supposed to, just like trying to tell random stories. A lot of times about games I like. I guess when I was a kid, it'd be stuff like Mario or Minecraft. And funny enough, some of these books I even co-wrote with Preston, who is now working with me on Curious Fox Sox. So I did that all the way through elementary and middle school. And then in middle school, I started a YouTube channel where I was doing animated content. Well, actually, I did YouTube videos for a bit, but gameplay is hard to get into on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I did animations for a while, and I really thought that was going to be my career all the way till I graduated, until Poppy happened, and I got the opportunity to work on games, which was my ultimate passion, and just being a storyteller in general.
I love that so much. It sounds like we honestly had like a similar upbringing because I also moved around a lot up in the Ohio Valley region, and I also was one of those kids that liked to write. So I like to daydream a lot. So a lot of the times, when there's a subject I really just didn't care too much about in school, I would just sit and write.
Yeah. I got in trouble a good few times for that. Worth it though.
Oh, absolutely. I love expressing myself in many ways, and writing is one of them.
I think I was the only kid in my electives class that liked creative writing while everyone else rolled their eyes.
Yeah, I kind of people just like always thought it was sort of weird how obsessively I did it, but I just it was so enjoyable for me. And then I remember trying to like sell the books we made, but they're like these little dumb paper books, so it's like 25 cents, and then we just got to make a photocopy before we give it to you. So we don't like lose it.
I would have bought one.
Oh,
Same.
I appreciate that. See, maybe I'll go find it, dig it up, and make a little extra side profit here.
Do it. Absolutely do it.
What inspires you? As in, what media out there helps fuel your creative process?
I feel like you ask me this any month and I'll have a different answer because I'm always like looking for new content to inspire me. Probably the most recent one would be Inscription, which kind of silly that that's the recent one because I think the game's like 4 years old. But it's this deck builder game where you're in a cabin with this, unknown just set of eyes in the darkness, and he's making you play this card game, and you don't know why, and you don't know what, and you play through this game, and there's so much mystery and depth to it that you would never expect on the surface. Because I don't really enjoy deck builders that much generally, but this one, it's really special. So that recently, and it's also a master class in just like surprising the player, subverting expectations. Long time favorites, we got Undertale, Minecraft, Half-Life Portal, the Mario and Luigi series of RPG games I grew up on. And as far as like TV and movies go, Breaking Bad is far and away my favorite show. And lots of horror movies in the preparation for Poppy, stuff like The Babadook and Hereditary, The Conjuring, and recently I've also been watching through Christopher Nolan's catalog for references on writing really like compelling dialogue, because that's been sort of my recent writing challenge. It's just dialogue that matters.
What is your favorite Christopher Nolan film?
I haven't watched all of them yet, so I can't say for sure. I do absolutely love Oppenheimer though, so I might give it to that for now, but I haven't watched Interstellar, which I have a suspicion might actually be his best one. We'll see once I get there.
Both are good choices. I think mine is definitely The Prestige. I don't know why. There's something about that movie that just captivates
It's
me.
I The Prestige is awesome on a first watch and awesome on a rewatch because, well, without spoiling it, if you haven't watched it, there's a big twist, and it is super captivating all throughout.
How much Inscription have you played?
I've beaten it, and now I'm in Casey's mod, which is like the basically the after game, like endless kind of do a bunch of challenge modes. And I have almost beaten all the challenges. I'm a little addicted right now, but I'm
I
not actually very good at it is the funny thing. So it's actually really tough for me.
I'm not either, and it's actually funny you mentioned that you didn't really like deck builders at
Mhm.
first. I was the same way when I bought Inscription. I'm like, am I gonna like this? I loved it, and
Yeah.
now I just keep pulling my hair out when I get hit with 12 stacks of bears.
Oh my lord. That I did the Bears challenge for the first time last night and like literally last night and it was horrible. It was hellish. I didn't know how terrible it would be.
It's no joke. Leshy is not nice.
No, but he is a good DM.
He is. Tibbers, you should take a look at it later.
What
Yeah,
inscription?
Yeah.
if you haven't played, it's worth your time. It's not even that long either. You could bang it out in like 3 days if you wanted to.
I will. I don't
It's on
trust
sale right
anything
now. It's on
Smirks.
sale right now.
I don't trust anything that Smirks
Ah,
wants me to play.
Okay, we're not. Get
Well,
off
trust-
the Smirks hate bandwagon, okay?
Trust me, all right? Yeah, screw SirSmirkz. I've got your back. Go play Inscription.
I was gonna say Isaac hasn't led you astray now, but screw me, I guess.
No,
Damn.
it's all part of the plan. It'll work.
I trust the method already. Were there moments where you had to completely abandon an idea that you wanted to use because for whatever reason it just didn't work out?
For Poppy, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Lots. I could literally talk for like hours about cut content because I know as somebody who loves games that finding cut content for games I enjoy is one of the coolest things. But I'll just go over some of the ones that I think are kind of particular highlights. Chapter 1, start there. I think people found it when they dug through all the like old levels, but Musical Memory in Chapter 2 was originally a mini game early on in Chapter 1, like right before you even get your grab pack. And I think we cut it just because it served like no purpose. It was like, why is this here? Because I think it used to be in that like power room where you first do your power puzzle. And so that got scrapped and moved all the way to chapter 2. In chapter 1 also, people have kind of found little hints of this, but in chapter 1 you kind of like get in the main area, you see Huggy, and then you kind of just go off into that left wing, and then Huggy comes after you, and you get completely detoured all the way to Poppy. But originally, that entire right side of the building that you don't explore at all was going to be part of the chapter. And all those rooms also that say things like theater and I think one says testing and another says cafeteria. Those were all going to be explorable areas. The one that says testing used to be gift shop, and the gift shop you found in the first area was there and replaced with bathrooms, and that whole right wing was just like a bunch of office space, you know, that you would get to explore and kind of check out. And what was originally going to happen is after you did all your kind of quests over there, which were all nothing like super interesting, just kind of monotonous gameplay, you'd return to the main area and go through the area straight ahead, which is labeled now innovation. It used to be something else like production, and in there you would find just gargantuan machines like mass producing toys, and Huggy would show up there and chase you across all these like rafters, not even the vent chase. So we were low on time. It's early on in production still, but we kind of knew we weren't going to be able to do all that. So we cut it out. We said, okay, Huggy will chase you in the right wing instead. So we had the offices over there, and at the end of it, we had Elliot Ludwig's office. You would go to enter it, and then as you open the door, Huggy would walk out of it, like just gargantuan compared to the door, chase you backwards, and then again into sort of that giant circular area where you found Poppy, you know, but it was on the right side in this case, and he chases you across the rafters. You trip him off, and he falls, and then you get Poppy. But all of that ended up getting scrapped. It was still early in development. It's not like we did it all and then took it away. It just became a thing of chapter 1 when we were making it. It was a really big risk for the company. The company was only making animations at that point, and this game was, you know, it costs money to pay like 5 people's salary to work on this month after month for a project you don't know if it's going to make any money back. So it kind of just became a thing where it's like, this stuff we can cut out. And that's when I went and got in a level all by myself and designed the vent chase for Huggy, because I knew we needed a different, better chase for him instead.
Mhm.
And so, ironically, cutting all that fat out for time ended up giving us probably the most iconic part in all of Poppy Playtime. So I guess I guess things work out as they should in that case. And by the way, I just want to clarify some for anyone listening. When I talk about what would have been over there or what used to be over there, don't take that to mean that's what it is now. Like, anything that is cut content it could be something completely different now. What's on the right side, what's up ahead, is not just inherently this because I said it is. And especially now that I'm no longer a mob, what's behind those doors is now even a mystery to me, because what ideas I had for what's behind them might be different. So I just want to clarify that. Man, I have so much more cut content I can talk about. I feel like I should really talk about Braun, because...
Please do.
Good lord, I have gotten so many people who are like requesting Braun to be in the chapters, and what most people don't know is we have really tried to put him in the game, and it never works out. Let's see. So, one of the first biggest instances of Braun attempting to work his way into the game was in chapter 3. Do you guys remember there were 5 buildings in Playcare, and one of them was labeled Toy Store, but you never get to go in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm writing a fanfiction right now, and I just wrote a whole scene about that.
Oh, okay. Well, it used to be a big part. Or I shouldn't say a big part, but you used to go there. We, again, had to cut it because just kind of we ran out of time. And it was like, when looking at things to cut, that was one of the first. But way, way early on in pre-production of the game, when we're planning everything out, writing this big outline, the toy store was going to be the second location you visit right after Home Sweet Home, before the school. And when you went in there, you would do a series of tasks. It was going to contain the prototype shrine, which ended up getting moved to kind of the cave area because we wanted to at least keep that piece. But after you did your stuff in Toy Store, you were trying to... It's so confusing. I remember you were trying to get a semi-truck for some reason. And Playtime was going to have like this underground tunnel system. And the idea I had, which wasn't very popular, so it didn't last very long, but I thought it would be super fun and super unique if the player goes to like get in the semi and they're supposed to drive it back to the main area, but as soon as they get inside of it, a giant gargantuan Braun that was like inside the toy store comes to life, and you basically have this Jurassic Park style sequence where you're driving this semi truck through these windy tunnels with this huge Braun chasing behind you like a T-Rex, tearing the roof off it and everything. I think Red Smoke was going to be involved somehow, and there was going to be like a partial dream sequence in this too, where you sort of imagine you're driving through a windy forest instead. And then you end up basically, to escape him, have to just crash straight through into the main area, and the semi gets like toppled over. So a whole bunch of cut content there. When I told people about it, they thought it was going to be way too silly, so it got cut. And then the toy store as a whole got cut later as well, so that was gone. Then we still wanted to use him, so we were like, okay, we need a boss fight for the Playhouse to kind of like cap off all these little toys being around. You know, what if Braun was in here as one of the big toys, and he would chase you? He was basically going to replace Dog Day, but when I say that, I don't mean he was going to be tied up and tortured and get like, you know, filled with toys like Dog Day did, but he was going to be there, and there was going to be a chase with him. But again, it's like, this doesn't really like serve the story. It's really just to have Braun in here. So we had to cut that, and then we came up with the idea for like, Dog Day's here, he's cut in half, pleading for your help. He's like, all the others have already been killed and eaten alive, I'm the last one, and then gets filled up with these toys and comes after you, which ended up being a way more compelling sequence, but sadly at the expense of Braun. And the last, I guess, like big thing we had to kind of scrap with Braun was Yarnaby was going to be Braun instead. They were referred to as feral toy through most of the time I was there in Chapter 4. I was only there for the outline of Chapter 4, and then I left. But for a while, it was like, maybe Braun could be this toy that chases you, but people kind of were opting for having a brand new toy instead, so he got cut. Yarnaby was put in that place, and that was it for Braun. Who knows now what'll happen with him? Maybe he'll appear somewhere else.
Poor Braun.
He really, we like the fact that we have tried to add him so many times and it just keeps not working out is kind of insane to me. It just isn't meant to be so far, I guess. But maybe someday.
I don't know. I'm
I
kind
just
of okay
don't-
with it though. I think that sorry, SirSmirkz. I think that when you are in the rejected toy area and you see the giant Braun in there, it's just kind of like my headcanon is like, oh, well, he's dead now. That's just his corpse just standing there. So like, I get it.
Yeah, it's been what it is. Braun's like in flux, kind of forever. He might appear, he might not. Not up to me anymore. So you know, keep an eye out. But those were the times that I tried my best to get him in. Not it wasn't meant to be, I guess. There's other cut content too. I'll just go over some other stuff quickly. Catnap was a bear.
What?
For a while. Like, I think you guys did an interview with Avalon Delaney.
Yeah.
Right? She's fantastic artist. She's been around on Poppy since day one. She drew up the grab pack originally. And when we were still in chapter 2, she like sent me this idea she had of a small stuffed bear character that could somehow like sing you to sleep and cause hallucinations. This then evolved into a giant bear character that spewed gas, and then into Catnap himself. I can't remember exactly why we moved away from the bear. I think we just kind of felt like designing a unique looking teddy bear was almost impossible because teddy bear has been made so many times. And also like there's so many other games that have kind of creepy bear mascots. I mean, obviously Five Nights at Freddy's, and the cat just... Micah came in this one day with this really rough sketch of what would become Catnap, and we kind of just all instantly thought it was really creepy looking and decided to move forward with it. So I don't know if people know that. Toei was going to appear 2 chapters earlier, not necessarily as Doey, but just the idea of a Play-Doh, or I guess not Play-Doh, but Play-Doh-like character existed for so long. There's been so many cut grab pack hands. The chapter 3 in particular, like the process to end up with the flare hand and the purple hand, the one that lets you jump, was very, very long. We had prototyped a hand that when you like clicked on it, it could basically detach and move around on its own. Kind of walking like, if you guys have ever been sitting in the back of a car and you look out the window and you take your fingers and just pretend to make them run across the terrain.
Yeah.
Then like that. And then there was also a hand which its coil, instead of being like this electrified wire, was going to be made of elastic plastic. So you could essentially shoot it out and have it like hold midair and then sort of wrap it around objects to shape it into all these unique shapes. Really cool idea on paper, but it was just super confusing. So we had to cut that too. I'll let us move on to other questions now, but as you can guess, like game development, you're always innovating and prototyping and trying new stuff and killing old stuff. So there are unseen levels of just cut content for Poppy that, hopefully will come to light in some fashion. I think I talked about probably the most interesting ideas that got cut, but there were definitely other things that have never been seen.
SirSmirkz, what are your thoughts?
I'm like... my brain. Oh my god. My eyes just got bigger when I heard like detachable hand that runs around like a little spider, or like remote controlled hand or whatever. I feel like I've said that exact thing at one point, but I don't understand how Jurassic Park Braun was a unpopular idea. That sounds so cool.
It does sound so freaking cool.
Look, it's one of those things where like I agree with you guys, all right? Just to be honest, like it was my idea. I wanted to do that one, but it just was like it's gonna be a lot of work. We have to program in, the ability for the player to drive a vehicle for a very short sequence, and Braun as a giant dinosaur. I don't know, it was hard to picture. Sound like big scope. And when I say like a lot of scope, I just mean like the time commitment it would take to do it wasn't really worth it. So yeah, I got caught. But I agree with you guys. I thought it was a fun sounding idea. I hope enough people go and listen to this whole podcast because I want them to hear this. I just that's an idea I've wanted to air out forever because I think it's so funny.
Oh my god, please. A perfect excuse with the gas to make it a jungle. Like, we're in a cave system now. Come on, Mom, please.
Maybe they'll bring it back, I mean, still I have to actually be a little careful with some of this cut content because, some of these ideas they might still use someday. So I'm trying to explicitly talk about things that I'm almost positive won't come back. I know Braun could come back, but I don't think it'll be in any of the forms I talked about if he does.
Yeah.
So those cut hands, because they were cut, I'm assuming they won't as well. But you never know. And Catnap can't be transformed back into a bear. He's already a cat.
He lost too much weight.
Yes. he was fat. The bear was so fat. The concept art of it.
I'm surprised that y'all never thought about doing like a Teddy Ruxpin knockoff.
We did. I mean, this was the closest to it.
Yeah.
I guess. But it just. And also, the original concept for the Catnap commercial, which got replaced with like the cartoon, was using a Teddy Ruxpin one. So chapter three's character catnap slash what would have been the bear is our closest probably shot at the Teddy Ruxpin direction. But I guess catnap didn't end up talking at all, so it's like he doesn't really feel like Teddy Ruxpin.
Not at all. I don't know if I'd want that voice telling me a story as I'm going to sleep.
No, probably not from him.
Oh my gosh, there was just so much good stuff there. I could
Mm-hmm.
as SirSmirkz has said in previous interviews, and I'm sure we'll mention it again during this one, a Poppy Playtime definitive edition that includes all of this stuff would be amazing. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love the chapters as they are now, but like having an extended chapter 1 that didn't take me 8 minutes to get through would be great.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it. It might be something they'll do. I honestly don't know. So, I don't have control over that, but you feel free to ask Mob for it. I do think it would be a little tough. You don't want to almost maintain the purity of the original still.
Yeah.
But finding very natural and clever ways to insert more, I think would be great. I also think chapter 1 kind of needs it just by the sake of the environments you go into in all the other chapters are way bigger than where you are in chapter 1, which feels kind of strange considering you're in the main lobby. That should be like the most grandiose place in the whole factory in theory.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next question now. So, speaking about Poppy Playtime, speaking about Mob Entertainment, what originally drew you to Mob Entertainment, and how did you get involved with Poppy Playtime?
So, I like I had said earlier, I used to make Minecraft animations, like these animated music videos. And I'll be totally honest, I was kind of ripping off what Mob was doing at the time as Enchanted Mob making these videos because, well, I was 14. I saw them and I'm like, wow, that's cool. Let me try my hand at it. And then, the owners of Mob basically saw it and were like, hey, you've got cool stuff. How about we kind of handle the managerial side of your channel, which was called Isaac at the time, and we will bring in, maybe someone else to help you work on it. You guys make separate videos, and from this formed a channel called 3 Display, which is still up on YouTube, but be warned, it's the machinations of a 14 to 18-year-old boy, so it's not exactly too pretty. But if you're curious, we had that channel, we did it for years, and then when I was 18, I moved to St. Louis, which is where the Mob headquarters were, to kind of further this stuff along. And meanwhile, Mob started working on some games. There's a cut idea that I won't talk about because, maybe they'll want to do it someday, but they had a game they were working on, and I sort of, probably pretty annoyingly, injected myself into it because I was like, I really want to work on games. I feel a little sick of this animation stuff I've been doing. It's too samey for me. I want to try my hand at this. So I inserted myself. I started trying to make suggestions about the game, and that game kind of fell through in the end. But then they started on Poppy. You guys maybe know this, maybe don't. I think they have talked about it on Twitter before, but Poppy used to be in a house. And the plot of it was that, and again, this is not by me. I just want to be clear. I was not involved heavily at all yet.
Yeah.
But the idea was this: you're playing as a little kid who has a toy named Poppy from Playtime Co. And your parents work for Playtime Co. And this Poppy is actually a living doll, and she somehow transforms you to be the size of a toy. And so you are running around your own house as your other toys are coming to life. Some of these toys were Huggy and Candy Cat and Boogiebot, and also a very early tiny version of the prototype. All of these toys were coming after you, and you had to like survive them. You wouldn't really think about this when you come up with the initial concept, but running around a house when you're tiny is actually really boring because the environments are humongous and most of your house is floor. So it's like you're kind of just like run into the next location as a toy chases you in this very open area. It's not super interesting. So the concept changed. They're like, the house isn't working. Being the size of a toy isn't working. Let's do a factory instead. Let's go actually directly to Playtime Co. because that just sounds way more exciting. And so that's what they did. They designed these first few levels where you walk in to this, you walk in through these big gates to Playtime Co. It was way bigger, like the areas were. I remember seeing the white boxes. I wish I could project them into your minds right now so you can see what I mean. Huggy stood at the center of it all, and the prototype was going to be involved somehow. But he also, at this time, again, was like just the size of a small little toy, not the beast he's become. And in the chapter, you would get to Elliot Ludwig's office, and you would find Poppy, and that'd be it. But the game was just not really very cohesive. It had early ideas of things. There was a VHS tape you could find on the floor. There was a flashlight. And, assumedly, Huggy would come alive at some point. But overall, the story was pretty much non-existent. And the gameplay was also... It was, as much as Poppy already kind of is a walking simulator, that was all this is. There was no tool of any sort to kind of make the game interesting. Mm-hmm. So I looked at all this. I tried to give tips, and it was kind of clear they were just sort of lacking a vision. They didn't know where they wanted to take this. So I was like, how can I involve myself again? I'm going to pitch a idea for the gameplay to make the game interesting. And so I pitched this idea. I wonder if I've talked about this publicly before. Okay, this is going to be interesting if not. I pitched an idea where you would get Poppy almost right away, and she would be like pretending to be inanimate most of the time, but you would carry her around in your hand, and you know how she's got the little like pull string on the back, like Woody from Toy Story?
Yeah.
That was going to be welded around your middle finger like a ring, and so essentially what you would do is, say there's like something up on the ledge I want to reach, you would toss Poppy up there, with the string attached, she would land, and then you'd kind of almost control her as a drone that can fit in these small places you can't, where she would go and grab something or do some task, and then you'd pull her back to you with the string. I pitched this to everyone, and everyone thought it was really, really silly, which, I mean, it kind of is. Like, she's made of porcelain. If you throw her at anything, she's going to shatter into a billion pieces, and then her guts and blood are going to be everywhere. It's going to be a mess. So that wasn't working, but I still thought the gameplay of it was sound. So I ended up kind of evolving it, and eventually I pitched it instead where you had this robot that had two hands, one controlled with left click and one controlled with right click, and it is exactly the grab pack as you know it today. That's evolved from that initial idea. I pitched it. I wrote it all up on a whiteboard. I'll see if I can send you a picture of that whiteboard because I think I still have it saved. And I sat the entire team down. People seemed really to like it. And so they basically said, Isaac, why don't you kind of head up getting this prototyped so we can try it? And that's what I did. I worked with Achebe and we made this grab pack. I continued to pitch more and more ideas until eventually they basically just said, Isaac, you clearly have a cohesive vision for Poppy. Why don't you direct it? And that's when I was sort of handed the keys, and it's like, go on from there. And everything from there went wild. I went crazy with all the power I had now. So I went to work and started rewriting the story. I'll tell you what story beats did exist before I got there, at least from things that aren't spoilers, because some of these beats even still have not been made abundantly clear. Prototype and Poppy both existed, and their very, very basic backstories are almost identical. Again, that hasn't really been uncovered yet, but they're very similar. Huggy existed, and the Hour of Joy did exist too. That was actually the basis for all the events of the game. We knew that orphans were being put into toys, and then the Hour of Joy occurred. It was called the Rapture at that point. We changed its Hour of Joy, like, in Chapter 3 production, just because I think the honest reason is just we wanted a title that was as recognizable as something like The Bite of 87, where you just say it and you just know what game they're talking about, whereas The Rapture could is a biblical term. It could
Yeah.
kind of mean anything. And then all the story after that came from my brain working with the amazing brains of like Zach and Micah and Seth to kind of write out these stories for chapter 1, and then chapter 2, 3, 4 were all written. We've always known kind of the rough, very big story beats for Poppy. As far as like lore goes, a lot of these characters like Leith Pierre and Stella have been around since chapter 1 and planned since chapter 1 kind of what their stories are. And the main things we filled in the blanks were like the chapter 2 location being the game station came around as we developed chapter 2. Mommy Longlegs came around as we developed chapter 2. Chapter 5, you know, the idea that it's going to be the labs and the idea that chapter 3 was the orphanage, that was around since the beginning though. So I'm not going to go through every single idea, but a lot of it was pre-planned all the way back in chapter 1, and we've just been filling it out ever since. And obviously after chapter 1 succeeded, I was able to kind of just maintain that status as the director of the game. I think I probably got a lot better at it. I was probably a bit of a... I worry sometimes that I was a little bit of a tyrant back in chapter 1. Not intentionally, but just the idea of a kid who, you know, has these very strong creative visions and a little bit closed-minded. I've had to grow a lot and kind of learn what being a director truly means. That you need to listen, you know, to the people around you, that lots of people have amazing ideas, not just you. And so that's gotten to be a big element of personal growth I got to have since chapter 1.
That's so cool. Like, just hearing all of that. Like, I will commend you though, because sometimes it does take a lot of effort for someone to take a step back and realize, oh, maybe I do need to listen to more of the people that are around me. And for me, that comes from 11 years of being a regional manager, knowing and having that skill. And it takes humility to sometimes, you know, realize that too. So I commend you on that, because not a lot of people will take it that way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really just I am so lucky I got to do Poppy. Like I really am blessed. The fact that as an 18-year-old kid I got gifted the keys to this series, which would go on to be so enormous. I mean, nobody knew it was going to be that big before we started. I know people like to claim that it's made to be like some cash grab thing, that we did it just to make a quick buck. But the truth is, like, when you make a game, it's wise to try and make your ideas somewhat mass appeal as you can, because you want to succeed. You want your game to reach more people. And if you make this thing that's extremely, extremely niche and unappealing, nobody's going to try it. So in that regard, I mean, yeah, we made these toys look like real toys so that people would be intrigued by it. But it's not to the extent of trying to make a cash grab. It's to make it's for the art of it. And the fact that it worked out so well is a happy coincidence, because literally the day before Poppy launched, we were saying how we thought it was going to fail. I mean, we'd put out trailers and stuff and gotten almost no traction at all. Like, the interest shown for the game before launch was almost zero. And then post-launch, it was just, wow. Got so lucky.
It's actually crazy.
It is crazy. Lucked out.
I mean, what we have now, it was all definitely worth it at the end of the day. So
Definitely.
it's very poetic in a sense.
And now I just hope I can do it again.
I think
Fingers
me and Tibbers
crossed.
believe in you.
Appreciate it.
I think a lot of other people do too. But before I move on to the next question, I'm sorry. I can't get, as soon as you said it, it's just been stuck in my head. It's like imagining Poppy on a string, like, go Poppy, throw her like a Pokemon and she just shatters.
Yeah, it's that's what they told me. They're like, because I didn't even like, that didn't cross my mind. I was too focused on the gameplay. They're like, you know, she's made of porcelain, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's a really good point.
Oh, today porcelain can bounce.
Maybe you throw her really soft so she doesn't do that.
It's still too much. She just like shatters into dust. Just a pile of porcelain ash, just with like eyeballs sticking out of it and the wig.
It's a little visceral for me.
That's awesome though. I love old ideas like that. Also, Tibbers, I think there actually is footage of that older version of Poppy, because I think I remember seeing it.
Yeah, Tyler shared it, so I've seen it too.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, go grab that if you can, if you remember.
Which older footage?
Don't tell me what to do.
Okay, fine, don't do it. The footage of like Huggy in the little house, I think that exists
Oh,
somewhere.
yep. That I think it has been posted somewhere. I don't know if it's ever been like broken down what it was, but I definitely know the footage is out there on Twitter.
I think, if I recall, it's like a little tiny clip.
I wish I was allowed to share more stuff, like more imagery with you guys, but I think I probably should be safer than sorry. Like specifically, the one I'm thinking of is just the original small design for the prototype. I actually can't share it because I think elements of it probably have made it into the final design.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Yes, all of us. See, I'm in the fan seat now. It's strange. It's like I don't actually know what's gonna happen.
You'll be just as surprised as us, so it'll be awesome. What were some of your biggest inspirations when it came to designing the story and the levels for Poppy Playtime?
Hmm. For Poppy specifically, I think the single biggest inspiration is the original Portal. It's the way like the kind of design and architecture and atmosphere of it is sort of attempting to capture kind of the magic of Portal 1, which is very bleak, very industrial, and the puzzles as well, like kind of learning from how Portal constructs its puzzles. A lot of people thought Bendy was a big reference, but it really wasn't too related to Poppy, I don't think. Five Nights at Freddy's kind of was, but not directly, I guess. But it's more just like I definitely was a humongous Five Nights at Freddy's fan growing up. Like I watched, I was always watching like MatPat and all the theories and stuff. So there's probably an ingrained subtext of FNAF in there, but it's not like super direct. There are super direct references to Resident Evil and It Follows in Chapter 1, though. And if you go into further chapters, like Chapter 3 had Bioshock, definitely, because I didn't actually play Bioshock until Chapter 3. So, yeah, I guess those would be some of the big ones. When I say It Follows, which is, it's a movie about a thing that is always tracking you down. It's specifically the, like, Huggy reveal, the original, this one where he just walks out of the darkness and is humongous. There's a very similar scene in It Follows that we kind of got inspired off of. And I think the prototype's like theme, you can find a very similar theme somewhere in the Babadook. We had watched that and we were kind of like, imagine if this is how the prototype's music sounded.
I love the
Interesting.
Babadook. Best Pride movie ever.
People don't like it for some reason, but I think it's a pretty good watch.
I was
I,
not
I'm, I'm a
expecting to
fan.
hear this much about Babadook.
It was during the chapter 2 phase we watched it, so that's when it started to kind of come into fruition. The Hour of Joy scene, this is a really big one. If you guys have ever watched Cabin in the Woods,
Yeah.
there is this scene where all the monsters break loose,
Oh yeah.
and that I believe is kind of what inspired the Hour of Joy originally. I can't say for certain though, because like I said, the Hour of Joy kind of predated me a little bit. It's not like I wasn't involved in some talks at that time, but it's more just like I wasn't in charge of the project yet.
One reference that you didn't mention, which I made SirSmirkz sit down and watch recently, and we heard about this from Amber, was there was also some inspiration derived from the movie Toys. It's a 1992 film starring Robin Williams. I'm not sure. Have you seen it?
Yeah, so I remember people talking about that, and I think many artists on the team did use toys, but I actually have never seen it myself.
Ooh. Well, if you ever want to watch
Which
it,
is
let me know. I've got it.
I've heard that it is pretty similar to Poppy, so I really should just sit down and take a look at the whole thing. I mean, I've heard they mend together, but also at the same time, I mean, I guess I'm not working on Poppy anymore, so inspirations derived from it would be purely just like post
Yeah.
my work.
So moving on, if you had to rank all the chapters from Poppy Playtime, what would be your ranking? So for example, mine is my top favorites chapter 3, and then it's chapter 2, then chapter 4, then chapter 1. And chapter 1 just gets last place only because it's so freaking short, but I still do love it. But what would your ranking be?
Oh, it's so when it comes to ranking stuff inside the games, I find it so tough because I see merits and flaws in all of them that other people probably don't. Um, and also it's like they're all my children, you know? I guess chapter 4 the least. I probably won't include chapter 4 here just because like I didn't really work on it very much, but
Mhm.
of the ones I worked on, it's just like, ugh, I love them all so much. If I had to rank them, and I'll explain my ranking, but just to be clear, there's no like I really think they all have merits and flaws.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone if someone's order is the complete opposite of mine, I get it. it's not surprising. I think of the first 3 chapters, probably the one that has the most flaws to me is chapter 2. Doesn't mean I don't love it, but I'm probably a little scarred because on release day we had this horrible bug with the cart berry, where on certain PCs, something that never happened in our just months of playtesting, he was getting completely stuck and it soft locked the game. And I remember the horror on our faces watching streamers get completely soft locked and unable to move forward. And it wasn't a quick fix either. And chapter 2 kind of just was full of a lot of bugs. I think Mommy Longlegs could have been a little creepier in her sort of transformed design. And I think that there are certain parts in the gameplay that are kind of wonky or weak. Specifically, the whole water treatment area, I think, is probably like the weakest area in all of Poppy Playtime. But chapter 2 also has like, I do love Mommy. I absolutely love Mommy Longlegs, and I think a lot of the story growth in chapter 2 is really good. I love that Poppy gets more screen time, even if it's not like by a lot. And I think the games in chapter 2 are so fun, especially Musical Memory is a favorite of mine. I love the moments when they're doing all the colors and then the new color comes up on screen and they turn around and see an extra button. That was beautiful. My second favorite would be probably chapter 3. Again, similar thing. It's like it has a lot of flaws, and I think the biggest regret by far of that whole chapter is the catnap boss fight, the problems that occurred with that. It just, the learning curve was too high, and it was one of those pieces where like 2 weeks before launch, we're still iterating on it, and we're like, we need to fix this somehow, and we just couldn't. I think the idea of the catnap boss fight is fantastic. I think with more time in the oven, it would have turned out great, but that's simply something we didn't have. But in chapter 3, I think the story is so good. I love the dream sequences, though I'm a little biased because I like almost exclusively did the level design for Dream Sequence 1, where you're like the very PT styled one.
My favorite part of the whole game.
Oh, well, thank you. And I love Miss Delight. So chapter 3 is really strong, but I think the most perfectly rounded experience, like, it's got great moments and there's not much you can say to bring it down, would be chapter 1. So I'm probably going to put that as my favorite. If I was a little more genuine, I might put chapter 3 above it, but because it's got so much more inside of it. But chapter 1 is just like, it's really hard to find flaws with it other than its length, and I think that makes it kind of just like sort of a golden child for me.
Yeah.
But again, I don't. That's my rough ranking. I don't even ranking these feels like I can't truly honestly rank them.
Alrighty. Poppy Playtime has introduced many memorable toy characters, but do you have any personal favorites or favorite? What makes them stand out to you?
See, it's like the same. It's that they're my children, but I'll try to. I literally cannot pick a favorite here, but I'll talk about some of the things I really like about each one. Why this is so difficult for me. So Prototype and Poppy, both of their stories are really fantastic and interesting. I actually wish Poppy has had more time to shine. I mean, considering she's the namesake of the game, it's kind of baffling how difficult it is to put her in scenes. She's still like very important to the story, but the like moment to moment gameplay, she's almost never around. But her story and Prototypes are both awesome. Huggy was the OG, and his design is like perfect. Mommy, well, I do wish she was creepier. She was the most fun toy to write for, in my opinion. Like her dialogue's just such a joy. But I guess it's not a toy, but I suppose the only character that's maybe more fun to write than her was the Doctor, because Baldwin's voice. I mean, so Mommy's got Elsie Lovelock, and then Baldwin Williams is the Doctor's voice actor, and he's just like, his voice is insane. Like I feel like I'm writing for like James Spader. It's writing dialogue for him, you just know you're gonna get. He's gonna put in this crazy, like deep, scary performance. So he's probably the most fun, and also the Doctor I just love as a character. Miss Delight, I guess she's probably not as high up as these others, but her sequence I do absolutely adore. I think it is probably one of the scariest parts of Chapter 3. Catnap has a really strong design, and I think his placement in the story is super unique. I love his whole like mentality of Prototype is his god. And then Doey's backstory is probably the best of all these characters, except for being Okay, you get the gist. I can't pick. I love them.
Mhm.
They're all really good, I think. I mean, I hope I did. Man, does that make me sound arrogant? I
Not
don't
at
mean it
all.
like that. I've
No.
gotten a lot of help. These are not all like all me or something. It's a team effort, and I love these characters.
Not at all. I think Smirks and I agree that, I mean, it's hard for me to pick one that's my direct favorite because I love so many of them. Because I could probably say there's a favorite from each chapter, but overall, could I give you a favorite? No, not at all, because I thoroughly feel like I have a connection with every single one of them.
Yeah, it's. I might as well just kill everyone who's not the favorite because it's that hard to choose. It would be that painful.
It's okay because Sir poops a lot of triumphs overall, so I totally get it.
Forgetting Owen the Oven. I mean, he's
Yeah.
or kick me, Paul. Man,
Uh,
that was a joy.
Smirks, we actually never heard what your rankings were for the chapter. I'm so sorry.
I mean, there's the issue with the length of chapter one, but you could easily say that chapter one fulfilled its purpose. Where I would place chapter one, I would definitely chapter one definitely at the end, but I just like anyone wish there was more. It doesn't actually feel like a chapter; it feels more like a prologue with how short it is. But again, it's like it gets the job done. So if I had to choose an order, it would be probably two, three, four, and then one. But they all have their own uniqueness to them. So
I think you and Tibbers have the same ranking.
yeah.
Actually,
Half
mine's
for
3
one.
then 2.
Oh yeah, 3-2 4-1. That's
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
you don't like three more than two?
I
Okay.
do. Well, here's the thing. Like the whole taking the rail car down into play care, that transitional period, and then going inside of it and just entering this whole magical world that's deep underground. It moved me in such a way that I cannot have chapter 3 not be my favorite for that reason. And
Oh,
the first dream sequence, my God, it was so good.
okay. I don't know how I didn't mention these when you're asking like inspirations. Okay, obviously the first dream sequence, huge PT inspiration. Frankly, we were robbed of PT, so
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
had to reference it somewhere in Poppy. And the cart part, if you go play BioShock, you'll know.
Yeah.
I actually just bought all
Huge
the games so I could
inspiration.
play them.
You'll get 10 minutes into BioShock 1 and you'll say, I see. I see.
Welcome to Rapture.
Yeah, huge inspiration.
Okay. So you were involved in shaping the story beyond chapter 3 before you left. How much of chapter 4 do you recognize from your original vision?
It is really similar overall. I mean, at least on major beats, like the moment to moment stuff is pretty different, but also that doesn't mean much because when I was there, the moment to moment stuff was not fleshed out at all. The biggest differences were certain character interactions were just handled a little differently. The chapter was way longer than I thought it was going to be. It was written to be the same length as chapter 3, you
Hmm.
know. I put in like the same amount of story beats when I wrote. Pianosaurus and the Nightmare Critters were totally added after I left. Pianosaurus he had a design that was being worked on, and they were asking if there was anywhere to fit him in the game, but I was kind of like, I don't really think we could give him anything significant if he was put in. And the Nightmare Critters just completely did not exist. I think they've said that they were made in like June or something. Not sure. Probably the biggest cut and change of the whole story was the entire like just everything that happened with Yarnaby. Because what originally happened is these were shown off a bit in chapter 3 and 4. I don't know if you guys remember because they're kind of obscure, but there's like this pod system sort of built in the walls of Playtime because it's like this place is so huge they need a way to transfer stuff from the top to the bottom quickly. So we built this. It's like a rail system. It's got these little like semicircular pods in the walls. If you go play chapter 3 and 4, you'll probably be able to find what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And essentially, when Yarnaby first showed up, the doctor was going to basically shove you and Yarnaby, or you into one of these pods, and then Yarnaby on top of it. And he was going to send it way far away, like completely different area of the factory, probably up near the surface, in fact. And when you arrived there, you would find this just giant factory area of machines for mass producing toys. You can think of it if you need like a mental picture, think of that Project Playtime map. That was like I don't remember what the map's called, but it's like toy production area,
The
basically.
factory floor.
Yeah, yeah, that one. You are going to be sent an area very akin to that, and Yarnaby would be there kind of hunting and stalking you. And the way it was going to conclude, which is cool, but I imagine they had to cut all this because it's just like there's already so much in the chapter. They probably just didn't have time for this. But basically, you were going to slowly turn on these machines. Yarnaby would show up and start chasing you across one of these machines. So you're like running on the giant gears, running on these conveyor belts. And then as you reach the end of the machine, one of the pieces was going to grab onto Yarnaby and you would set this thing into reverse. So instead of assembling a toy, it would piece by piece disassemble Yarnaby, rip out all of his yarn, like tear him up, pull off his legs, and just like kill him, absolutely destroy him. And that was probably the biggest thing that when I got into chapter 4 and played it, I was kind of like, oh, so that part is just completely like different now. I think I'm almost certain that we wrote that script for the Doughy commercial and the Christmas thing and the kid falling in the vat. All of that I think we wrote before I left because I remember seeing the script for it and like getting my hands in there. And the outro, the dialogue, the outro, as in everything from the Ollie reveal onwards was almost identical to how it was originally written, other than specific changes in dialogue.
I am shook right now because what you just told me about Yarnaby sounds so much more enjoyable than what we got, if I'm 100% honest.
It is really cool sounding, but to the credit, to all the people I know and love who worked on this game, it's just like, man, it was ambitious. Like, it's not up to, the team how long they're going to have exactly. So you work with what you get.
Yeah.
You get a budget, you get a timeline, and it's like make the game. Make it amazing, but make the game. And so while I mean, yeah, it sounds awesome. It's yeah, what was given is what the constraints were.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how it is sometimes.
And by no means am I degrading chapter 4 whatsoever, because I do enjoy the game and what they have created. All the developers have done a phenomenal job.
And I think I just want to say for everyone, like, think of my stuff as fan fiction at this point. My ideas are unfiltered madness, and while they may be cool, they're difficult to add. I strive to write these stories so that there will be moments that just the player is jaw agape, staring in kind of horror or amazement. And so we put in as many as we can. But when they're cut, it's just kind of part of the process. Nothing I say or want is final. Some things that are cut that might sound really cool gave way for better sequences.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree. It would have been cool to see that with Yarnaby. Maybe someone could whip up like an animation or something of what that would look like.
I mean, it definitely sounds like it would have been more ambitious, but I wish, maybe from what I've seen of chapter 4, had there been given a little bit more time to see any of these like other cool ideas get implemented, just like I almost feel like it would have been so much more worth it, because I do like chapter 4, but when it came to characters end in the chapter, specifically Yarnaby in this case, it's like jumps on a hook, essentially hangs himself, and burns. And like what I'm getting at is, had it been the way that Isaac just told us, like I feel like that would have been on par with the dark nature that Poppy Playtime portrayed in the previous 2 chapters, and like it's kind of that gruesome death. Like I feel like it genuinely could have been Mommy Longlegs, like, but take it up like 10 notches, and that would have been really cool to see. They're just getting they're getting destroyed like an actual toy. Yeah. I mean,
and the thing is, when you're in game development, you'll come to realize just the most painful truth is that no matter the finished product, you'll always wish you had more time. I mean, astronomically, with more time, every bit of more time you give something, the better it gets, but also the more expensive it gets, and more time doesn't. I've found that it doesn't directly equate to more content as often as you'd like it to. A lot of times it just means more polish. To add more content, you need like a significant increase in time. My current game I'm working on, we just kind of keep pushing the timeline back because we're trying to make this game as awesome as it can be, but yeah, just game dev takes so long, and it's so unpredictable. It's like performing an experiment with just two unknown chemicals. You don't really know what's going to happen and how long it's going to last for. It's all just over the place. It's super gratifying to get that final product, but the process there, it's how long it's going to take, how much you'll be able to do. It's a mystery to everyone involved until you get to the end.
Yeah, I'm still very impressed by what the team was able to do within their time constraints. Though it's very commendable in how they put everything together. But like,
It's so much talent, yeah.
it definitely shows too. The fact that they were able to just get everything together how it was. I mean, I don't think many other studios can manage what they have. Do you think Mob Entertainment is still aligned with the original vision you had for Poppy Playtime, or has it taken a different direction?
I think that I mean, I obviously can't know for sure because I'm not there, but if I was to guess, I would say that the lore, like all the kind of all the stuff that happened before these chapters, backstory, all of that, I would guess is probably pretty much intact. It's actually very restrictive to try and write new lore in because there's so many details for people to pick apart. I mean, there have been some very small lore inconsistencies here or there that people can point out. I think MatPat made like a short pointing out where there was a book featured in Project Playtime that technically couldn't have existed at that time, and he's right. Like that was just a mistake, just kind of a one of the artists putting in a bit of set dressing and didn't really realize that the timelines didn't add up. But I imagine, anyways, that they probably didn't change the lore much because it's very hard to. But the future of the just ongoing story, I just don't know if they kept it or not. I've written up a outline for it. To kind of just delve into what an outline is. Like it is really just kind of the high level important story beats of the chapter and almost nothing to do with gameplay except for like kind of the gameplay tasks. But as far as like what you're actually doing, not very much. Kind of outlines like what sort of monsters and boss battles you might find yourself in. I wrote one up. I have it all the way to the ending of Poppy Playtime. It is the ending that was kind of originally envisioned, but they may change it. If it's changed and somebody asks about it after, the next chapter's launch, maybe I'll talk briefly about it on Twitter. Because I like the idea of kind of getting cut content out there so people can kind of just know like alternative universes. There's a whole community just obsessed with Half-Life 2's beta that was cut. And it's for the better. The game is better in the end, but we'll kind of, I guess, just see how much they use, how much they don't use. I have no idea.
So, if you had stayed at Mob Entertainment, is there anything in Chapter 4 you would have done differently?
There are probably things here and there. I guess one of the bigger ones that I probably would have changed it, and this is also just this is how it kind of was originally as well. I think I kind of know the reasons they changed it. Doey's betrayal, in quotation marks, played out a lot differently before, and I guess, preferred the original way a little bit. Essentially, what happened is the doctor, you didn't really, it wasn't really the Omni hand you needed from him. You needed a power cell, and it got changed to the Omni hand because we already do so much power garbage in Poppy Playtime, it would be confusing, but I'll just use the power cell because I think it makes this story easy to explain. The doctor had a power cell, it's what was powering him on, and you needed it because the safe haven is at like 0.2% power. It's been running off this thing for years on the generator, and now it's about to break down. And if you don't get this power cell, the entire safe haven is going to be defenseless, all open to the outside, and Prototype's going to come in and, destroy everything. So what the player was going to do is you go to the doctor, you defeat him, you take this power cell, but then as you're taking it, you get a call from Ollie. And Ollie essentially tells you that Doey is lying. He doesn't need the power cell to run the generator in the safe haven. He's going to use it for something really bad. Something really, really bad. Like, we cannot let him get this. And so Ollie was going to tell you that you need to destroy the power cell. Now, people are suspicious of Ollie, but, and this is intentional, we knew that people would be way more suspicious of Doey. Like, people going into this chapter, they are expecting that by the end they will fight and kill Dowie. You know, that's the expectation. So we were going to lean into that. Of course, Dowie's evil. You know, is how the player would probably be thinking. Like, I believe this because, you know, he's on the promotional material. My metagame brain tells me, yeah, Dowie probably is the bad guy. So you go through with it. You destroy this power cell. You return to the safe haven, kind of bracing yourself for whatever Dowie's going to say to you, and he's not there. He is missing. It is eerie that he's not here now. And meanwhile, Poppy is like, all right, well, now that the doctor's dealt with, and I'm sure you did your stuff for Dowie, go ahead and go to the mines and plant the explosives and stuff. You would start heading down there, or sorry, the foundation. You start heading towards the foundation, and when you get there, Dowie finally shows up, confronts you, is extremely like, I can't believe you destroyed the power cell. You've ruined everything. Like, everyone's gonna die because of you. And this is when he would transform into this bigger, giant, horrific creature. He was gonna be a roaming AI that was down in the foundations with you while you're doing, like, all this planting of stuff. So he would show up occasionally and you'd have to, like, hide or run away. And then finally, when you return to Safe Haven, you would find him there. You would realize that it's been destroyed. They did run out of power. The generator did need the power cell, and it's way too late. You've already failed. You ruined everything, and Dowie can't stand it. This is when he transforms, and you have the boss fight with him. The boss fight actually is not something I had outlined, by the way. So that's like, I don't want to take credit for it. You know, the whole thing where he's like chasing you, and you saw him in half. We did have the idea that you would freeze him to kill him, but that was about it. So you have that whole thing, you kill Dowie, and now when you finally reach Poppy and Ollie calls and the big reveal happens, it has this different tone. It's Poppy's like, why did you do that? Why did you do all this? Who told you to do all this? It was Ollie. Ollie lied. Dowie was a great guy. You know, he was truly protecting the safe haven, and the safe haven did need that power cell. But you destroyed it because you thought Dowie was evil. Safe Haven was vulnerable. They swooped in, killed everyone, and that is the way Ollie leads all of you through this. And I like this. The reason I kind of prefer that is just because I think that it really sort of messes with what the player's expecting. They do expect him to be the bad guy, and they're willing to believe that he is when they're told it. At least this was my experience when I would like test read the story to people. And so now when they get this big surprise that he wasn't bad at all, it was Ollie just manipulating you, it's like this heartbreaking moment of I killed him for nothing. And that is probably the main change I would have made to chapter 4, other than maybe having the VHS tapes be a little shorter. The content of the VHS tapes is amazing. The lore is great that you get in them. The writing is fantastic, but they are a little long when you have to kind of just stand there. And that's about it.
All right, Smirks, I'll let you talk first.
What? No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, you.
No, you.
I mean, I can talk more. If people prefer the other way, though, that's fine too. You know, that's just my personal, like, I think the story would have been a little more impactful that way. But if you like it the other way, that's fine. I get it.
No, it's not that at all. I actually prefer your way because it would have been so much more impactful.
No, I didn't. I just mean in general for the audience.
I'm so disappointed we didn't get that because that would make so much more sense than everyone having to sit and speculate. Well, why did the generator blow up? And I'm like, well, you can probably just assume that when you're on the phone with Ollie, whatever process you were doing, there was something wrong and you sabotaged it unknowingly, and that's why it exploded. But like the idea of having the power cell and that being what saves them and we destroy it, oh my god, that's so freaking impactful. That should have been, like, no offense to anyone else who's worked on chapter 4, y'all did great, phenomenal, but I would have preferred this option as well. I think this would have been a major point to the story. Even when I played chapter 3 for the first time, I immediately knew that Ollie was not someone we could trust, and I guessed it on stream. I'm like, this is probably going to be the prototype. If we had that moment of him in there telling us, you need to destroy this because Dowie's going to do something bad with it, like, that generates more trust to this character and would make it even more impactful when you find out, yes, it is the prototype and you done hoot.
I can see why they might have changed it though, because scope wise it wouldn't really change anything. And I'm assuming they just kind of realized that it was going to be very tough to pull off, which it would be, because, well, some players might have that reaction like I'm talking about. You can't account for the players who decide that they trust Ollie even less than they trust Dowie.
Yeah.
They still have to destroy the power cell, which is just like not fair, really. But you would have to take away the player choice because if you added a whole nother like story path, that really complicates things. So I get it, and I also understand if people prefer the other way, because it is kind of fun to see this guy who's clearly always been a little bit crazy fully go crazy, but at the same time, that's just my preference, my take.
All right, SirSmirkz, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Honestly, it just comes down to a preference thing. I would have loved my feelings as the player to be played with a little bit because I feel like I already knew Ollie was gonna like it's hard to say because I was on the Ollie is innocent bandwagon, but then the speech pattern at the end of chapter 3 that was added, and then the events of chapter 4, and it's like, okay, yeah, he's bad guy. But it brings me back to chapter 2 because I wanted to trust Mommy Longlegs because maybe, just maybe, there's like a 0.5% chance like we could like talk her down from being like a hysterical maniac. But that obviously wasn't the case. But Dowie, I feel like, was the closest thing to the player interacting with a toy that isn't kissy and came out of relatively nowhere in the depths of like Playtime Co. And it's like, oh, his introduction was a little intimidating, but he's not gonna murder us, so that's cool. Let's be his friend.
I do love Dowie in chapter 4 though. I just wanted to say that because he was so fun. I didn't get to do like really any specific writing for him, but when I was playing, every time he was on screen, I was smiling. I was just happy he was there.
You ever just turn around and just see him like smiling like a goofball? Like
Yeah, he's a goofy guy.
He was my favorite character from the chapter.
Yeah, I probably agree. I wish he got to transform more, but
yeah,
man, those like types of materials are so hard to work with in games because they have to be optimized, and it's just like, oh, good luck.
What do you think was the biggest challenge in continuing Poppy Playtime's story after chapter 3?
There wasn't like it's whenever we write the stories, it's never like a challenge on a big scale. It's always the details that we get so they're difficult. So we had the story, the vague story of Poppy Playtime plotted out since chapter 1. We outlined kind of a lot of the lore beats we wanted to touch on in this chapter and answer or pose to players. I would say the biggest major challenges were like trying to come up with a location as good as Playcare and a character as strong as, any of our previous antagonists. That is always a horrible, terrible challenge because Playcare was so good to like explore. It's so versatile and different every room you go into. And it's just like, how do you even follow that up seriously? I mean, we can't do the labs. Those are for later, So we have to have an intermediary location. And the best idea I came up with Zach and Micah was a location where all of the toys are held or were held. Sorry, back when Playtime was up and running, and that evolved into what is the prison. I probably wouldn't have like called it actually the prison. I was more of like a behind the scenes name in my mind because the idea that Playtime Co has a literal prison below their depths is a little weird. No, it's a lot weird. So probably would have given it a more like playtimey name. I think I heard that some characters within it refer to it as like the shelf or something. And I think that would have been really good. More of a metaphorical prison and less literal, but
yeah.
That was a big story challenge. Is like, how do we follow up Playcare?
I think it is still called the shelf. They just don't really make any real references to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that name's cool. It's also very toy-etic. It's like the shelf. That's where the toys are. Oh, of course. It just makes sense. That's smart. I didn't come up with that, but that's a really smart name, I thought. And on smaller scale, it's just all those little interactions. It's like, how do we transform Dowie from your ally into your enemy? How do we allow Ollie to manipulate you while still maintaining enough trust until how do we fit Poppy in the chapter, because that is always a challenge, and how do we bring back Kissy Missy? All those, it's like it's just was so many details that made it tough. And on the biggest scale, I guess the biggest challenge is just like the next antagonist always needs to be really good. Following up Huggy was hard, and following up Mommy Longlegs was hard, and following up Catnap's hard, and so on and so forth.
So you have worked on both Poppy Playtime and Project Playtime. How did your creative approach differ between a single player horror experience and a multiplayer one?
It really didn't, as much as it should have, probably. I wish we had leaned into the contrast of being like surrounded by friends and you're all laughing, and then suddenly just boom, you're all alone. Like Lethal Company. That's what makes Lethal Company so good. Is that moment where you realize nobody else is nearby and you're screwed. For Poppy, I guess for Poppy Playtime we leaned into psychological kind of like horror where the player has to wait for the scares. It's a very slow burn. Whereas when you're playing Project Playtime, it's more like you're walking through a doorway and your friend's waiting behind it to jump at you. You know, it's not like this slow, terrifying experience. It's more just that fun of, whoa, you got me, and then running away, and then, oh, you got me again, and just kind of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot more reliance on like the cooperation, which isn't necessarily horror as much, but just like the single player versus multiplayer. Like people need to work together to survive the monster. One man versus the monster is not gonna make it, but 6 people, that could work. You know, you need to bait and switch and keep moving and do these pillars together to get them done faster, and that's kind of just like the design of it all.
Very interesting. Sidebar off of that. What would you think if there was a co-op Poppy Playtime game that's not Project?
Like a story, like if Poppy Playtime just essentially was co-op, but
Yeah.
you know, with a story befit for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I assume it could be fun. You could probably make better puzzles out of it. Having 2 people with grab packs, for example. I'm not like filled with all sorts of crazy ideas for something like that. It's never really crossed my mind very much, but I'm sure it could be a good time.
I miss Project now. I'm hoping for they consider spin-offs of like, you know, not stuff that they've done before. Like single player projects kind of been stagnant, but like I want more Poppy Playtime, so it'd be nice if they do anything, literally anything at all.
Yeah,
They gotta-
spin-offs can be great. They just have to be so. I mean, it's difficult with horror. You know, not every. I would say most genres don't blend with horror very well, and when you take that out of Poppy, it kind of loses a lot of its identity. I like the idea of spin-offs, if they're the right category.
Makes sense.
I mean, I want a spin-off of The Hour of Joy where we play just a random character that in the end does not live. They die, but you have to...
I mean that would be cool.
It would be so cool.
I think that's been an idea. Maybe it'll happen someday. There's nothing definitive. But like an example of an idea that I think would not work is some mobile game where it's the Poppy Playtime casino, and you're gambling with Huggy wearing a suit. As cute as it sounds, it's like, is that actually what Poppy fans want the company to spend its time and money on over chapters and stuff? Probably not. I don't think so.
Playing
Roblox.
blackjack with Huggy, and he's your dealer. Did you just sing under your breath Roblox?
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't say anything.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from directing Poppy Playtime that you're taking into your new projects?
I don't really have a single lesson, but I have a few lessons that I would say are important that I learned over the course of the 3 chapters. Probably the most important one, maybe second most important one, is accepting that not every idea will work. Honestly, I feel like most the amazing games that exist out there were completely different when they started. And that's good. That's the nature of it, because the truth is, no matter how good of a game designer you are and how fun your idea might sound on paper, the truth is when you play it. And if you play it and it's not good, you need to do something else. That's integrity that's hard to have. It's hard to make something and then kill it. You might be attached to it, even if it's not really that good, but you have to. That's how you get the best game in the end. Chances are whatever you do instead of it will be much better. The most important lesson is to listen to playtesters playtest the crap out of your game. You don't know anything. Your playtesters know everything. If your playtesters are struggling, fix it. If your playtesters don't like something, fix it. If they love something, do more of it. If there's some random encounter they get on accident and it provides a great reaction, put that in the game for real for everyone. And it's hard too because you get so cagey of your ideas when you're working on them. You're like, it's not ready, it's not ready. And then by the time you show it to a tester, you're too far gone and you can't go back. So get those playtesters in early. When you're doing the early ones, just get people who are going to be more understanding that it's an unfinished product, and then save the more finished stuff for people who are not developers. And then another thing is just surprising people, change up the formula. Don't do the same thing every time. I actually wish we did that more on Poppy. I think people got a little familiar with the formula a little too fast. You know, chapter 3, part of the reason Catnap I think feels a little weak at times is because he's sort of just doing things that Huggy did, and you already know in your heart that he's not actually going to pop out yet and attack you. So you're not feeling that real, genuine fear of, I have no idea what might happen. So, surprise people. And just broader things I got to learn while working on Poppy is I became a much better writer, and I learned a lot about designing characters and just games design, and I just became a better developer as a whole. I got to grow thanks to all the like people around me.
That's so cool. Like, even if there's anything you could take away from any type of project that you work on, it's knowledge and growth from it. And I even when I'm writing music, everything that I complete, I learn something new. Always.
Yep, absolutely.
Looking back, is there a moment in your career at Mob that you're particularly proud of?
It's not even like a question for me. It's chapter one's release. That just I mean the stress leading up to it was insane. And unlike every other project that came after it where there was a lot of stress leading up and then when it releases, it's just like it needs work still, and you don't get that like full relief. When chapter one released, it was like I felt like I was on cloud nine. Because lucky for us, it actually wasn't that buggy. Probably because it was so small, to be honest. But all this worries we had that we were going to fail, and it's like, what do we do if this doesn't work? Like, what happens next? Do we have to stop making games? Do I have to do animation again? It all faded. I was so proud of myself, and I was so proud of the team that worked on it. We were so small, and we made this thing in 4 months. You know, it all came together, and it's just like all that work, all that stress. It was all worth it. And I was literally like, I was just unshakably happy for the next like month of my life because it just was like I made it. I did it. Thank God it worked.
Really? So chapter 1 only took 4 months?
Well, I guess I should clarify. There was like another 4-ish months before that where it was in a very flux, not I wouldn't say real stage of development. It was kind of just like things were being tossed around, levels were being prototyped. But as far as real, like actually now there's people working on the game and my time on it, that was 4 months. Yeah.
Wow.
We started in June or July. June or July was one of those, and then we ended in October. That way, and that's crazy. I'll probably never make a game with that fast of a turnaround again, unless it's like explicitly a really short project. But
Yeah.
now I have ambition, so I have to make bigger things.
Well, if you ever need a good playtester, point at SirSmirkz.
Of course.
Uh,
We'll just get more and more playtesters as the game gets closer to done, so everyone can tell us what's good and not good. Hopefully.
it's always fun playtesting things. Good to see what you can break too. A lot of the other testers that work on Poppy love doing that, or just running into the dumbest bug ever.
Yeah.
I don't even look for things to break. They just find me.
Yeah, you got bad karma.
I
I don't know
do.
what to tell you.
In any game I play.
Some people get no bugs, and some people they get every bug. It's crazy.
Yeah, Tibbers is a magnet for bugs.
You make me sound disgusting. I hate it. Oh my god. So, moving onwards from Poppy, your new studio, Curious Fox Sox, is working on Feed the Pit. Can you share what excites you most about this game and how it differs from your previous projects?
Sure. Well, so I'll just like say what Feed the Pit is for those who are unfamiliar. Basically, You have joined the secret society worshipping a gigantic, monstrous pit in the ground named Elijah. He's like a god to these people. And he needs to be kept fed. So your goal is you need to go into these woods and avoid these crazy, unpredictable monsters. Basically, play hide and seek with a dead body, find it, dig it up, and bring it back to home base so that you can feed it to Elijah. That's the very top-down view of it. So as far as how it differs from my previous projects, or what excites me most is mainly actually the big question is the game is all about like your expectations and shattering those as much as we can. Every mission you're going to face off against a different monster, and each monster is just like completely different from the last. They're all so unique compared to each other, and they work in very unpredictable ways, but they do have patterns. So you need to be paying attention to learn how they work. And it's so exciting. Like, I love watching people slowly uncover how this monster functions and learning how to combat it. The gameplay in Monsters, they're full of like just surprises all the time. The game breaks its own rules on like how you're supposed to play this game of hide and seek to introduce new roadblocks that you have to figure out on the fly. And I'm also just the story and lore for it are turning out to be like far more awesome than I had expected. I really think they're coming together. And initially, it was pretty blanket concept, like I just talked about. Like you're part of the society, and they feed the pit. That's it. But there is so much more to it now, and I'm really think it will leave an impact on people.
Very curious to see what that's all about.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good. I think it'll be the best game I've made.
Oh,
I mean, I think the gameplay is already no shade to Poppy, but the gameplay there is pretty it's kind of non-existent sometimes. You just sort of do puzzles every once in a while, and then you have a bunch of encounters. But this one has a defined, fun gameplay loop, and the monsters are just like so interesting, each of them.
there's two things that are drawing me to Feed the Pit. One that you just mentioned, I'm big on replayability.
Yeah,
It's a big one for me. And two, giant spider.
yeah. The spider enemy is freaking me out. Seriously, it's getting like properly implemented right now, and it has little baby spiders that like sit up in trees, and they're so creepy.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
I kind of feel we tried to design it so it's not like too triggering of arachnophobia because I want people to be scared and a little uncomfortable, but not like unable to play. But if the reactions are too strong, we might have to find a way to pull it back just a little so it's still scary but not like uncomfortable.
I think every game that tries to incorporate arachnophobia friendly mode has just straight up turned them into like little blobs.
I mean I do think it's pretty funny when I mean the Lethal Company one, it literally swaps out the spider with the word spider.
Oh yeah, no, there's a it's kind of a 4v1 against PvE. It's called Devour, and you basically just have to exercise a bunch of demons with your friends.
Hmm.
And one of the levels is a half spider, half lady. It's literally just the head of a creepy grudge woman on a spider. It's very unsettling. It scared the crap out of me when I first played it.
Yeah.
But the arachnophobia mode keeps the head of the lady, but turns the rest into just a black blob that hunts you around, and it's just the most unsettling thing to look at.
I see.
Like it didn't make it better; it just made it weirder.
Hmm.
Very, very excited to see how the tree spider works out. And I don't know how to feel about it having kids now.
Don't worry about it. It's not even the worst creature.
Yeah, it'll be fine,
okay.
SirSmirkz.
I can't wait to make you play too, Tibbers.
What are you talking about? I've already play tested.
What?
Yeah. Oh, but the version you tested is like ancient history. It's like that's not even the game anymore.
I
You
know,
don't
but at
know
least I get to
anything.
brag about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Tibbers holding out on me.
If you're
Listen.
a Poppy fan, don't click off. I still have to give I'm gonna pitch the game more, okay? You have to listen and decide if you want to play it. So don't leave. Don't leave.
So, what is the most difficult thing for an indie studio to overcome when starting off?
I mean, you'll get plenty of unique struggles. It really depends on the structure of your studio, but if I was to give blanket advice, it's going to be getting your game seen. There are so many indie games out there. There's a gigantic pool full of incredible games. And if you're new, starting out, and you don't have a name for yourself already, even my name for myself being in Poppy doesn't go very far with this because I'm not making another Mascot horror game right now, you know? So it's not everyone is just transferring over automatically. Getting seen is really hard. Your game needs to bring something new or something amazing to the table, because if you are just a kind of a boring, bland another game, your chances of getting seen are not high. Now, in the case of Poppy, like I've talked about, we thought it was going to fail, and the saving grace for Poppy was all of the YouTubers who came out and played it. I am forever grateful for it. We sent it to some of them, and I remember we got responses from some, even who said, "Yeah, I'll play it." I remember for sure Daco responded, and that was like really exciting for us. And had it not been for all these YouTubers, Poppy would not be what it is today. I'm so grateful for that, and I hope that these YouTubers will be willing to give this game a chance as well. It's a great way to get your indie game out there if you can find it for them. And of course, these YouTubers are they're looking for good games to play and show off on their channel. So sending them a free copy, easy. It can change your life. Like literally, the YouTubers just changed my life just by spending the 30 minutes to play Chapter 1. It's mind-boggling. I'm so grateful.
That's awesome.
I know I'm going to be making content on it when it comes out. I just don't. Here's the thing for me.
Can't wait.
I don't throw money on something if I don't believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say.
So I have to make it free. Dang it.
No, I'm backing it. Leave me alone.
I mean, a lot of that can be said, especially like with how bad people get burned by AAA games nowadays too. I don't feel confident like throwing my money at anything that is like $60, $70. So you have like Feed the Pit comes around, or like Next Lethal Company, or anything that looks like it has an ounce of passion mixed with the quality. Like I'm more than willing to throw money at it.
See, hey, everyone, this is important. Indie games are cheap, and you can refund them if you don't like it. I mean, you'll know within 2 hours if you like the game. So buy it when it's on sale, or buy it when you just kind of are ready to try it. Play it for 2 hours. If you like it, keep playing. You're supporting indie devs, which they desperately need. The games that come out of indie are typically way better than the games you're getting from AAA. They're cheap. True. And if it really is not your style, you can just refund it. Steam makes it very easy. It is not difficult. You can do it in 5 minutes or less.
Just to pat indie devs on the back a little bit more. You buy the game, you like it, you never have to worry about it getting ripped away from your hands too.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, all live service games eventually.
I feel like some part of you is still salty about multiverses getting shut down.
I'm very salty about multiverses, Tibbers.
I see.
You don't just taking multiverses out to the back and shooting it because they don't believe in it anymore. And Warner Brothers sucks.
The industry is horrible. A bunch of people got laid off from Marvel Rivals this week, and it's
I saw that.
Wasn't that like the most successful game your studio has ever had? Are you that stupid? God, so upsetting. I couldn't believe it.
My brain exploded when I read the news article, because I was like, how? Why? This game is doing so good. People are playing it. They're involved. People are making content. And you're just going to let your staff go like that? I mean, what the hell?
It's completely left Overwatch in the dust too, and it's just like I think the most shocking thing is just like why did it even happen? Like who justified this happening? So
play indie games a lot. You'll probably have more fun anyways. I'm just being real.
I always feel like I mean it just the communities come together and they just see everyone else loving it for the same reason. It just really brings everything together. I mean, like when Inscription first came out, like it was awesome. Like everyone was getting into deck building games, and you had that horror aspect, the fourth wall breaking. Like there really are diamonds in the rough out there with indie games.
They're not hard to find either. There's lots of great indie games, and there's a lot of diamonds. I mean, Any game can make it too. I mean, there's
Oh,
the
yeah.
game about digging a hole. It's
Oh
doing crazy
yeah.
well right now. And it's like that was made in a few months, I'm sure. You just gotta find your footing in the right place. And you do need to market your game. Do not market your game. And if you can get some YouTubers to play it, all the better.
So, do you have any recommendations or friendly advice for people wanting to get into game development? For example, someone like me who already has like a full-time job is seeking a way out into game development. While I can't code, animate, rig, or design, my talents lie more in sound design, music composition, writing and script writing, videography for live action elements, editing, voice direction, and voice actor realms.
So if you it depends where you want to work. If you want to just join up with a studio, what you need is a portfolio. So you have to make something.
Mhm.
If you want, I'm gonna run off though. If you want to do your own thing, because I think that's more appealing to most people.
Yeah.
If there's roles you're good at, but other roles you can't fill, you need to find a partner or partners. You need to find people who can take on those other halves. Right now, I've got me and Gunnar and Preston. And we all handle completely different parts of the project. Like Gunnar is responsible for the entire code base of the game because neither Preston or I can code. I have tried. It makes me furious. I cannot do it. But I can animate. I can rig. I can do music. I can market, and I can write. And I do all those kinds of things for the game instead. And Preston is makes great art. So he designs like all the textures and many of the models and all that stuff for the game. We all work together. And if you have a full-time job, you just have to set aside time. If you absolutely have complete confidence in your idea, you could take less time at your full-time job and then make it not full-time and just work hard on the game. But your best bet is to find a great idea that is small and set aside time on it. Do some game jams, maybe. Game jams are a great way to kind of like get your game seen by a few people and experiment. Like we were just saying, that game about digging a hole, very small, very simple, and it's doing crazy well right now. The guy who made it is probably making millions of dollars off of it. And FNAF and Poppy were both made in a few months also. At least chapter one of Poppy and FNAF one were. So set aside the time, find the people you need, and start small. But make sure whatever that small idea is, you feel confident in it, you feel ready to spend your days working on it. If you don't feel that way, it's not a good enough idea yet.
That's some very sound advice. Thank you for that.
For fans of Poppy Playtime, what would you say to encourage them to check out Feed the Pit?
Okay, here's the important stuff. This I wrote down. I was like, I gotta get this right, you know? If you're a Poppy fan for the toys and aesthetic, and that's like it, that's like the reason you're into it, then Feed the Pit is probably not your game. But if you're a Poppy fan because you love the story or you love the horror, you're gonna very likely enjoy Feed the Pit. Feed the Pit has super unique, scary monsters. Not as much psychological horror as Poppy, but a lot more of a fun chase type horror. It's like you're in constant fight for my life mode. It's very exciting. The gameplay is, I think, much more exciting than Poppy. We've got roaming AI and a strong gameplay loop. The story is rich and full of lore and terrible horrors, like Poppy is. And I've also, if you're into Poppy, this game is not so far detached. I've gotten help and advice from several of the devs that worked or are still working on Poppy, like Zach and Micah of Examination have helped, and Ben Pavlovitz has been playtesting a bunch for me, and he was and Dana Willoughby well, he hasn't playtested yet, but he's going to. They both had director roles on other parts of Poppy, so both projects are coming from me, and I believe this is the best game I've made. So if you like Poppy, you should try Feed the Pit, and if it's not for you, Steam makes refunding easy. It's probably gonna be $10. It's like if you would skip one 6-piece meal and get ramen instead and play our game, it'd mean the world. And that's about it. You can wishlist in the description. I forgot to mention.
Yeah, go click that link and wishlist it.
Click that link.
So you've gone from Poppy Playtime, a narrative-driven puzzle action horror game, to a new survival horror game, Feed the Pit. Is horror one of your favorite genres of games to work with?
I do like horror. I guess it's one of my favorites now, but it's also like the main one I've worked in. And I mainly like horror because seeing the player reactions is just so fun. I don't play that many horror games. I'd say a pretty proportionally normal amount of horror games compared to just like all the other games in my library. But making it is special. When you set up a scare and you get to see people get scared by it, it's just so enjoyable. While I think I'll probably make plenty of games that aren't horror in the future, every game I make will have some horror inside of it. If you've played Half-Life, you can think of like Ravenholm from Half-Life 2. That's kind of like comparable to that. There will always be something scary in my games. It just might be for a segment or for more in the lore and less in like the actual ongoing playthrough. That's my opinion on it.
I mean, I've played games that aren't horror games at all. Like, there is a metal shark, a giant metal shark in the sewers of Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh,
That thing, its name is Clanker, and it traumatized me.
yeah. I mean, I can think of movies and games where there's like specific scenes or characters or things that scare me. Like in Cars, there's that one really big tractor, and there's that dream sequence where it just like grinds up whatever the green car's name is, and just he comes out as goop. And as a kid, that was like nightmare fuel to me. So I might not have a green goop tractor in my games, but I'll certainly have horror somewhere. Feed the Pit, however, is just a horror game. So
I like it when games have like little elements of horror too. It makes moments like definitely stand out. So it's pretty cool.
yeah.
Bouncing off that question though, what other kinds of games are you interested in making?
Well, let's think. I think that I'm definitely gonna make some like more 3D games that are kind of combat or puzzly in the vein of like BioShock, Portal, Half-Life I want to make games that are very like those in sort of the theme and tone. I definitely have always wanted to make a giant RPG, thinking of something like Undertale. That would be super fun. It would probably be like story-wise, kind of in the vein of something like Undertale, but gameplay-wise, much more interactive, like the Mario and Luigi series, where it's very responsive and twitchy almost. And I think I also probably someday want to make at least one game that really shatters the fourth wall, like Inscription or Doki Doki Literature Club. Those games, they're so fun when that surprise moment comes where it's all revealed to be a game. Like in the game, it's a game, and it's just like, whoa, crazy things happen.
Yeah, no, those games are awesome. I think one of the more recent ones, like those two you mentioned, were definitely classics. I love Doki Doki Literature Club. I think one of the
Mhm.
more recent ones from the indie horror scene was Kanito Pet.
Okay, I didn't see that one. My side is kind of fourth wall breaking a little bit as well,
I have yet
which is
to
also
play
pretty
that.
recent. It's I haven't played it. I've just watched that one. I might buy it when I think they're adding a big update to it soon. I have not seen Kanito Pet though. Could maybe check that out.
It's like those little virtual assistants.
Yeah.
Basically, that is the mascot basically of the whole game. And I avoid these. I still haven't seen anything. I just know it's been getting a lot of praise, like me side and others. I play
Mhm.
Doki Doki, but those are the ones that just I've heard very positive things about.
Sure.
Also, side note, I'm probably gonna be buying a lot of your games. I love BioShock.
Oh yeah, they're great. I wouldn't mention any game here that I didn't think is like one that everyone should try. These are like the just some of the best games I've played.
So do you think you and Curious Fox Sox would ever consider creating a spiritual successor or something just as ambitious as Poppy Playtime?
Well, Curious Fox Sox, no. But me personally, like maybe, way in the future or some, we will definitely make games as ambitious. I would say in some ways this is more ambitious than Poppy. I mean, if you play Feed the Pits campaign straight through, I'm sure you'll get at least like 5 hours of content, if not more, depending on your skill level, which is obviously a lot bigger than, I guess, the first two chapters of Poppy at least.
Yeah.
And I want to make full blown games someday in the future. I mean, this will be a full blown game, but I mean like more of a really just ambitious kind of 3D crazy experience. I don't think I'll probably ever make something that's necessarily a spiritual successor to Poppy because I guess I don't even know what that would look like. It'd have to be mascot horror, I imagine. And I don't necessarily plan on going back to mascot horror at the moment because I find that the community can be kind of toxic
Mhm.
at times. I'm not targeting specifically Poppy's community, but it's more like some of the outsiders, I guess.
It's a fair point. Yeah, there's bad in a lot of communities. There's a lot of good, but I totally
Of
know what you
course,
mean by that.
of course. And I've just kind of done mascot horror. You know, it's like if I hadn't made Poppy, I'd be happy to make something like Poppy, but I already have, so I don't feel as much need to touch on it again. But if I get inspired, I mean, I'll do it. Obviously, if I come up with an idea that I'm just like I have to make this, and it happens to be in that vein, that's that. It'll be done.
Yeah, that's totally valid. Can't force yourself to make the same thing over and over again. I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of teams try to they'll just see it and they'll try to copy the same success, and it just never goes well.
Hmm.
There's gotta be a spark. There's no spark, don't bother.
Right.
So, as a much smaller team of indie developers now, what are some of your main goals you're working towards with your games from this point forward?
I really want to surprise people. I think that I want people to play the games I make, and once they finish it, they say to themselves, I wish I could experience that for the first time again. You know, the games I have that with, they're just ingrained in my mind. It's like, man, if I could go back and just do it all over. I want to make games that shock and surprise people, where that by the end, that's how they feel. They can never fully re-experience the novelty of a first playthrough. And I want to make meaningful stories. You know, if the player cries, heck yes. I want everyone to cry in my games. Or at least I want the ability for the story to be impactful enough where you could. And then I just want to really focus on getting some gameplay that is just genuinely fun. I think the gameplay is one of my biggest, like, I wish I had done better on Poppy, because I don't feel like Poppy has consistently compelling gameplay. I think you have these amazing moments sprinkled throughout, and then you have these low moments, and the power puzzles also are they're a little funky. Some people like them, some people just absolutely despise them. So, but they might like the rest of the game, and then therefore having these kind of not super enjoyable puzzles to go through just sort of takes away from the experience of them getting to experience everything else in the game. So I want to put a big focus on gameplay as I go forward.
Nice. I will say I did love Chapter Three's power puzzles. I don't know why they scratch an itch in my brain that I really enjoy, but I'm also autistic, so
I like them too. I mean, I was very heavily involved in designing them in chapter 3 and 2 and 1. I mean, that image I was talking about way earlier of like the original grab pack idea,
mhm.
and like when I pitched it and drew it up on a whiteboard, you'll see the power puzzles kind of pitched in there. And funny enough, the where they came from is the stupidest thing. I just want to say it because I think it's funny. I originally got the idea of like wrapping a wire around all of these like poles in the ground after I played this stupid mini game in Super Mario Party where you and a teammate have a piece of yarn and you're trying to like make certain shapes in a grid of like spikes in the ground. And that's where it came from. And some people really like the puzzles, but then I think some people absolutely hate them. I'm pretty sure like Markiplier, when he played, just despised it, which is a shame. You know, it's like it's kind of tough to watch certain people not like it.
Mhm.
Because Markiplier, I grew up watching Markiplier. It's just like, oh man, I wish he was enjoying this more. So I think I would have wanted to make them a little more accessible. I would say the best word for it is to make them more playful, as in like the way the puzzles kind of work right now. People don't really want to just dive in and start trying stuff. They kind of just stare at it for a while and try to think it through. I think it'd be more fun if the mechanics encouraged you to just go experiment until you start figuring things out. But that's also kind of vague and meaningless because it's not very specific. So, but I am glad you like the power puzzles. I also enjoy them a lot. I think they're fun.
I definitely approached them from the standpoint of I'm not going to look at what might needs to be done. I'm going to see what happens and if I can blow something up.
Yeah, that's how it should be. That's what makes the puzzles fun is when you start trying things and you see the results and you're like, well, what if I do this? And then what if I do this? Until it finally all clicks. If I do this and this, I win. Puzzle design is incredibly difficult. I tried I watched so many videos on it, and I still can't even fully like comprehend it all. It's mind bending.
I will say, and I mean this in the most positive way possible, whoever designed
Okay.
the little gas puzzle in chapter 4, I'm looking at you. I appreciate what you did, but you made me want to rip my hair out.
No comment. I don't know who it was.
I don't either. But let's just say there were a few choice words said when I was trying to figure it out, because it took me the longest. I think that was probably the longest I spent on a puzzle in a game.
You kept me there for 40 minutes.
I'm sorry. I needed your help. I was struggling.
I was there for 40 minutes when I first ran into it.
Well, yeah, you're a beta tester. You can deal with it.
No, I can still have a crisis when looking at a puzzle I don't understand.
I'm sure you can. So, do you have any other future projects besides Feed the Pit that you're currently working on or storming in the background that you might want to share?
Well, I am helping to write things examination from time to time. They're a YouTube channel, so I can't say which things I'm writing on because they're not out or announced yet. But you can keep watch there if you want to, because there will eventually be things I helped write on. And then I do have game ideas. I have one specific game idea that I am just so enamored by. I want to make it so badly, but it's just not time yet. I need to be in a slightly different position before I can make it. I do have other ideas, and also I'm always just kind of awaiting other cool ideas to inspire me. You know, I mean, Feed the Pit kind of didn't exist until it did. It wasn't like a long-standing one I had been thinking of. It just kind of like the right sequence of ideas strung together one day when I was talking with the other guys, and that's how it went.
Really, really cool. So, Tibbers, I get to ask this one?
Yeah, you get to ask this one this time.
Oh, wow. Alrighty, Isaac. Where can everyone find you on the interwebs?
Gosh, you know, why don't you check the description? You can wishlist Feed the Pit on Steam. I have Twitter. I'm Isaacs on Twitter. You can subscribe to Curious Fox Sox on YouTube. We post devlogs there, little updates as we kind of gradually progress on the game. You get to hear about all of our successes and all of our many failures, things that go right and things that go wrong. And if you really love me and you have money to spare, we do have a Patreon. I am doing this full time, so any extra income is extraordinarily appreciated. It means a lot to me. It allows me to spend even more time working on this game. So you can support us on Patreon, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to Curious Fox Sox on YouTube, and wishlist Feed the Pit on Steam.
Excellent. And SirSmirkz, where can they find you?
SirSmirkz on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all those things. Here, hi. And that's about it for me. What about you, Tibbers? Where can I find you?
Before I move on to me, I just want to say that was the best way you've ever put that. It's only taken us how many interviews to get to the point where you'll actually say where you're at? I'm beating my head on my desk.
Baby steps.
Oh my god. Before I actually talk about where you can find me, I have one quick little story that I want to tell. And I tried to find the clip of this because it was clipped, but I just could not find it. Isaac, back when I think you made a post of all these things from chapter 3, and you included a video of me having a mental breakdown about CG5 Song.
Oh yeah, no, I recall. I remember that.
Shortly after, you sent me a friend request on Discord, and while I was streaming on Twitch, I remember this so vividly. I was sitting there and I got the notification. I didn't even remember what I was playing though, but I looked over and you just hear me say in the most odd voice, but very loudly, "Who the f is Isaac?" And then
I don't do it for the fame. I do it for the love of the game.
It took me by surprise because then I looked at your picture. I'm like, wait, is that Isaac from Mob? And then I don't remember who. I took a screenshot of it and sent it to somebody. I'm like, is this Isaac? And they're like, yeah. Why? And I'm like, they added me as a friend. I'm like, oh, cool. And then it finally dawned on me. I'm like, oh crap, Isaac just added me on Discord. And then I wanted to hide under my desk for 15 minutes, thinking I've done something wrong.
No. I was kind of well, I'm glad I could have that insane effect on you, but sadly I was kind of friending a lot of people because I was knowing that I wasn't going to be a mob too much longer. So I was kind of getting to know everyone, but Hey, I appreciate you not knowing me and then knowing me and be like, oh, now I'm afraid of him.
I'm afraid of everybody. That's the thing.
I am glad you weren't too afraid to reach out for this interview because it was very fun. I appreciate the questions a lot.
Yeah, not a problem. You were on our list.
Nice. Yeah.
You can find me on the internet. Basically, it's probably better to go to my website. It's in the description. It has all my socials there because I have to use different names for everything since I picked a licensed character to go as my name a long ass time ago. But yeah, Isaac, thank you for giving us this time and this opportunity. You have no idea how much this means to both of us, and we cannot wait to share this with the rest of the world.
Yeah, I hope I was really excited to get to talk about all these like pieces of content. I haven't really had a place to do it. So I thank you guys for having me, and I hope that everyone who's watching this gets to have their mind blown by some of that content, especially.
I know mine is.
And please support my game. I'm gonna keep saying it
Yes,
because I need it.
please go and support Isaac's game. I'm really looking forward to Feed the Pit. As I said earlier, I just don't back anything. When I saw all the information on this game, I was like, this sounds really interesting. I want to play it and I want to support them. So if you have extra money and you can, everything will be in the description. Go and give it a look. Just see what you think.
Elijah's waiting for you.
That he is.
Until next time, everybody, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. I don't know if I'm supposed to say bye, but I did.
You can. SirSmirkz will never say bye.
Gotta see him out. Yeah, so I thought that was a little. See, he didn't do it. And I'm like, I don't know if I should now. But
SirSmirkz doesn't like people. He doesn't care about saying hi or bye to them.
I didn't say hi or bye at work today.